Hello and welcome to another An Old Man Watches. And today I'm going to be talking about, well, you can see the name of the movie that I'm going to be talking about. So this is a 2010 film, and the main character is Lena, a down-on-her-luck exotic dancer, who basically, out of sheer desperation, takes a job with a disreputable promoter who has previously stiffed her on the money side of things. So she doesn't really trust the guy, she doesn't like the guy, but she doesn't have any options. She's one of 5 dancers on the job, and they variously squabble, play dice, and lounge around being bored. As there's a definite absence of punters in the rundown club that they're dancing in. Because of their boredom and their squabbles, they discover a strangely chilly corridor behind a pile of boxes. Sure, that kind of stuff happens, right? Where they discover the Necronomicon and read from it. Because, that kind of stuff happens, right? Surprise, surprise, suddenly there are zombies everywhere. Everything is better with Walking Dead, right? There is that issue that zombies don't really respect the whole no touching the dancers rule that most strip clubs have, and also that the strippers prefer not to be consumed by flesh-eating undead. So what begins is a desperate and frequently absurd battle for survival. So it's interesting that sort of in the period 2008 to 2010, there was this sort of mini boom of films featuring strippers and zombies. It's hardly the first time that we'd had naked women being chased by the undead. Linnea Quigley was nude through large chunks of 1985's Return of the Living Dead. But yeah, it was recognisably or briefly a thing in this period to sort of go, bosoms plus zombies must equal money, right? This is one of those films. It's based on a Japanese manga or comic book named Kyonyu Dragon. But let's talk about the film in a little bit more detail. So, first of all, I should say that like the aforementioned Return of the Living Dead, this is a horror comedy. And within that niche, it falls very much on the comedy end of the scale. The 2 primary characters, again, they're going to take chainsaw and katana up against zombie ninjas, zombie samurai, and all sorts of other wacky Walking Dead. There's lots of not terribly well-staged fight scenes, gouts of CGI blood, as well as buckets of the old-fashioned fake but, physical kind, and attempted humour of varying degrees of success. What there isn't is much in the way of actual horror. While multiple on-screen characters do suffer fates that are, technically gruesome and tragic, the film puts little or no emotional weight on that, often playing those sort of outcomes for laughs. The film certainly makes no effort to be tense or scary. And giving it its title, I don't think it should be a surprise that this is a movie that's light on emotional depth and very much focused on goofy hijinks. But yeah, just to be clear, this is a film that is light on emotional depth and very much focused on goofy hijinks. The second thing to mention is that one of the sources of wackiness and absurd humour in the film is that the zombie contagion affects all dead flesh. This is the explanation for the zombie ninjas and the zombie samurais. They've clawed their way out of ancient graves. If it's dead, it comes back as a zombie. Now, please ignore questions like how are the 100-year-old body, the 500-year-old bodies so well preserved, because the film is certainly going to ignore them. But the script goes much further than just humans who died centuries ago can still come back as zombies. The very first undead attack of the film is conducted by raw fish and sushi. It really is a plague of all dead flesh indeed. And as a narrative choice, I guess this is a smart one, given the film's obvious desire to throw as many wacky and absurd encounters as its characters as it can. Like being attacked by undead sushi is kind of goofy, and in fact 2 years later there would be a movie called Dead Sushi, which is honestly better than this one, and I'll talk about one day in the future. But it's very silly, very over the top. I'm not wholly convinced that the film's desire to throw as many wacky and absurd encounters as characters is always in its best interests as an overall work of entertainment, but I do have to admire its commitment to its core concept. What's the next gory and silly thing we can do? And finally, as titles go, this film certainly has one, and it's clearly a title chosen to suggest a certain focus, that focus being scantily clad women. This is reinforced by the casting. Both the 2 leads, pictured with chainsaw and katana on your screen, were known at the time of this film was made for their prior work in erotic film. But if you tuned into this just for skin and sexiness, you're likely going to be rather disappointed. While the main cast are scantily clad throughout, I mean, what they're wearing there is pretty much what they're wearing. The film contains relatively little actual nudity, and it certainly doesn't make working as a stripper look appealing or glamorous in any way. So yeah, just as I described this as a horror comedy with emphasis on the comedy, it's also a sexy comedy with emphasis on the comedy. Or attempted comedy, anyway. How funny you find the film will definitely depend on your affection for absurdity, because this is, the film really has kind of one trick, and it goes in heavy on, here's a silly situation involving zombies and scantily clad women fighting them, and that's pretty much all it does. So, yeah, if that's what you're looking for, it delivers. If that's not what you're looking for, it really doesn't deliver anything else. So that should tell you whether you've got any interest in this movie or not. So that is Keanu Dragon, or, that title. Next time, it's been a while since we talked about John Wayne films from the 1930s, so let's dive back into the early days of cinema when men were when and films were flagrantly racist, as opposed to, more subtly racist like they are today in many cases. So yes, next time, 3 more John Wayne films from the 30s when he was churning these things out more or less one a month. But that's next time. In the meantime, thanks for watching this one. Hope you enjoyed it. Catch you around.